Letters from the front. The following communication has been received from Private T. Lynch, a Malmesbury native now taking a hand in the South African War, Newcastle, Natal Colony, the 7th of October 1901. Quote, being a Victorian and a member of the 5th Victorian Mounted Rifles, I thought a few lines to you on the conduct of this war from an Australian point of view would be acceptable to you. You have received many letters from many of our contingent, relating some of our experiences since our arrival in South Africa, but very little in respect to the management of the several departments. In a few days it will be nearly 2 years since the present war commenced and is still going on with the same amount of vigour as hitherto. The only difference being that we have to pursue and hunt down bands of roving guerrillas in country that is impossible to do it with the results that would be termed gratifying. Our armies in South Africa have many hindrances and in their way. In the first place, we have to be fitted out with mounts suitable for the country, and I might tell you that you would be surprised to see the number of remounts required for our troops in South Africa. I can safely estimate the loss on an average of 1 horse for every mile of country traversed by our troops. One has really no conception of the amount of wear and tear involved. A trooper's outfit wants to be renewed every 3 months, and the constant riding and rough koppie climbing soon renders it unfit for further service, which is not hard to perceive by the numbers of ventilators each man shows on his wearing apparel. Every regiment has its own distinctive badge, but the same uniform is observed throughout, and from a distance you could not distinguish a hussar from a dragoon or Australian. It is khaki everywhere you go. You cannot imagine how nourishing it is to see a civilian now and again in his free and easy attire. It brings back memories of one's happy experiences in dear old Australia. Everyone is more or less buoyed up with the feeling that the end must come soon, although my belief is that you will find fewer men today who would venture on naming the date of the war's conclusion than could have been found 2 years ago. The opinions of the most experienced and the calculations of the ablest among us have all proved at fault. The war still drags on. It is wearisome to us that in the field in pursuit of a fleeing foe, each month records the capture of a few hundred, some killed or wounded, but the style of warfare pursued by the Boers is that hostilities can still be kept up by a few men in the field. Surprise is generally expressed that with the number of troops in the country, the Boer commandos still in the field are not run to earth. But let me tell you, the task is more difficult than is generally supposed. If the Boer forces would make a stand, the end would not be far off, but from what I can judge, the Boer principle is that those who fight and run away will live to fight another day. The enormous area of the country enables the roving bands of Boers to move about with comparative freedom, and only at such times when circumstances permit them to attack some outlying post or some isolated camp, and when that attack is delivered, they disperse, and by the time reinforcements arrive, our enemy are nowhere to be seen. Such is the state of war today. As one writer put it, it is all for the world like a game of blind man's bluff reverse, with the continent as a playground. The British troops are all blindfolded while they are trying to catch the Boer with both his eyes open. Then there is the question of the maintenance of the wives and families of the Boer. Now, what I have seen of the Boer, he shows no concern about those who should be his first consideration. He is fully aware that they are being fed and clothed at the expense of the British taxpayer, and yet we have so-called humanitarians wailing the tail of these people. Sir, let me tell you, the Boer refugee is well cared for and not harshly treated as some people pretend to suppose. I've had occasion to go through many refugee camps, and I was impressed by the manner in which they are conducted. They appeared to have all the comforts imaginable, clothing and food in abundance, including extras such as lollies and toys for their children, but in the face of all this kindness, they would spit in our face in acknowledgement of our generosity. I heard one Boer virago say that if she had the strength of a Samson and a sword big enough, she would slay every Englishman on the face of God's earth. At the same time she was carrying a parcel of food. Yes, it is true every word that I have spoken. I often think that our authorities in South Africa have shown too much leniency in dealing with our foe. They have misunderstood our kindness for weakness. Let me say that conciliation and kindness have utterly failed, and the severe rules of war, which the Boers know little of even yet, will have to be applied to end the war. We are a humane power, but am I right in saying the word humane is useless and even a dangerous term? The general opinion is that we must exercise more harsh measures in dealing with our guerrilla foe. If we did, the war would soon end. As an American general once said, we have tried 3 years of kindness and conciliation without any reconciliation. On the contrary, those thus treated have acted as spies and guerrillas in our rear and within our lines. The safety of our armies and a proper regard for the lives of our soldiers require that we apply to our inextricable foes the severe rules of war. In conclusion, Australian troops hold a very high reputation in the minds of those able to judge our fighting qualities. Truly, we are citizen soldiers, but we feel in our hearts that we are fighting for the cause of freedom, the same cause that our American cousins fought for more than 100 years ago: oppression, corrupt government. Many of our boys have never handled a rifle previous to joining the 5th Contingent, and as for drill, it was a foreign factor to them. I sincerely hope that many of the old barrack square systems will be done away with. There is the possibility of giving a man too much drill. A man, to make a good fighting soldier, in my opinion, should not be trampled and kept down like an African K. A man should be allowed more liberty of action, and I venture to say the result would in many instances be more satisfactory. We Australians have a profound regard for our officers. Many of them have fallen in the field fighting bravely for their country. Many of them have been maimed for life, and some have been invalided home to Australia. We all regret the departure of our commanding officer, Colonel Otter. He was greatly respected by our contingent, and we were sorry that failing health necessitated him leaving us. Others who we deplored leaving were Major McKnight and Major Harris, all highly respected officers and Australians at heart. We are now entirely in the hands of imperial men. We would like to have someone Australian, though. We have more confidence in our countrymen and are prepared to follow wherever they choose to lead us. Yeah, hi everybody. Sunday morning I'm in Melbourne. Haven't been here for years. I'm actually in South Melbourne, which is a very prosperous, expensive suburb now. Not too far from the CBD. You can see the buildings over there. As I said, I haven't been to the city for years, but of course we're down here for Boer War memorials, aren't we? So I believe at the South Melbourne Town Hall we're going to find a monument. But for the moment, I'll show you some of the beautiful old terrace houses. They're worth a fortune now. Another interesting fact, they have the Grand Prix in the Albert Park Lake, which is at the end of South Melbourne. Anyway, enjoy the ride till we get to the town hall. Yeah, here's an example. Look at these places. Wow. Multi-million-dollar residences. Even over there. Are they Victorian? Edwardian, maybe? There's a bluestone. Yeah, fantastic. Right. Okay, well I can see the clock tower of the town hall, and that's where the monument is. I'm thinking about hiring one of these scooters. That would get me around, but it seems so complex that it's harder than makes it worthwhile, I think. So I don't know this area very well at all. Hello. Clarendon Street. Actually, I think I bought my futon. I had a futon for years and years, decades, from a futon shop just off Clarendon. Here's Melbourne's famous trams. We just missed one. And Melbourne's known for its trams. Well, over we go. So we got two sites to see in South Melbourne. There's another monument, I think, down near Kingsway. I reckon I can already see this one. If you're like me now and you've been following these videos, you can spot them a fair way off. And you see that it's got those special lamps on top. That's fairly common. Right, here's the town hall. Magnificent, isn't it? 1879. Wow. Okay. And as we found out time and time again, they have the monuments directly outside the town hall because this was the first major engagement we had as a nation. Oh, hang on. Well, there's a few different dates. I may have been to. Let's have a look. Oh, hang on. Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look. Once again, it had drinking fountains. There we go. Wow, look at that. This memorial was erected by the mayor, councillors and citizens of South Melbourne to commemorate the jubilee of the city and the departure of the several Victorian contingents who fought the battles of the Queen and Empire in South Africa. The plaque is made by a P.J. King of 273 Little Collins Street. That's why the dates up the top confused me, because it was 1855, which must be the founding of the city of South Melbourne. We can actually go up a bit. Yeah, it used to be the old bronze or brass fittings there. Used to be a drinking fountain. And there's a pug. Well, I wonder if there's anything in the town hall, but anyway, of the 140 residents of this city who left by the several contingents, the following lost their lives: Major G.A. Eddy, a major, that's interesting, Sergeant T.P. Mohan, Lance Corporal J.A. Smith, Lance Corporal R. Topham, Private C. Glynn, Private C. Moore, Private J.B. McCann, and Private J.E. White. Okay. Now you can very faded dates up there: 1905, 1855, 1905 again. Okay, well, we can tick that one off, and now we'll go and find the other one in South Melbourne. Well, I'm down on Albert Street now, because I'm opposite Albert Park Lake, which, as I mentioned before, is where they have the Grand Prix. Well, I wasn't a fan of that, but that was many decades ago. Anyway, this is once again magnificent. Once again magnificent houses around here. Now, down the end of Albert Road, it connects with Kingsway, which is where we should find our next monument. Well, I'm on the corner of Albert and St Kilda Road, and this is where the monument should be. As you can see at this stage, maybe they moved it, maybe they dismantled it, but it's all this construction, you know. God, I don't know what they're doing. That thing over there looks like a terminus maybe for the trams or something. There is a massive, can you see that? That crane. Could be wrong, but we'll walk on the other side. Oh man. There was a building over there, used to be Shell. Long time ago in a different persona. I used to work at Shell. This all looked so different then. Anyway, we'll see if we can cross the other side of the construction, see if we can find the monument. We've found this, which answers the question. I don't have to keep staggering around this construction site. The South African Soldiers Memorial. What's happening? They ask. They pose the question, then they answer it. The South African Soldiers Memorial and the John Cockbill drinking fountain have been temporarily removed from Albert Road Reserve to allow for the construction of the new Domain Station, which will be located under St Kilda Road as part of the Metro Tunnel project. Okay, well that's what they're doing. They're building the underground rail link through here. The dismantling of the memorial and drinking fountain has been approved by Heritage Victoria, blah blah, subject to conditions. A full photographic archival record is made of the two structures by Hin Lim Photography prior to the commencement of works and lodged with the State Library of Victoria. The memorial and the drinking fountain will be carefully dismantled into separate pieces which will be individually labelled and stored at a secure location. Whilst in storage, conservation works will be carried out on the stone and bronze elements by specialist conservators. In accordance with the permit, measures will be taken to ensure that the trees to be retained in the reserve, including the Windsor oak, are not detrimentally affected by the works. So there's some sort of picture there. Oh look, I reckon that might be it there. Can you see that? That's probably what it, and I sort of remember it now because I worked, I'll show you where I worked. This curved building, that was Shell, and I worked on sort of the third or fourth floor in IT, so I sort of remember that monument now. So yeah, that all makes sense. Okay, well let's head back to the car. Next stop, my ancestral grounds, St Kilda. Stop recording.